Yeah, let's go into climate change, adaptation, and resilience. And for this session, we'll have two women leaders. I'm very happy to have them. We have Farzanah Chowdhury from Green Delta Insurance, the CEO of Bangladesh, CEO from this insurance company, the largest insurer in Bangladesh. And I think it's in the website, but her profile is very impressive in terms of what she has accomplished as an SDG pioneer, as a champion for inclusive insurance in Bangladesh, and this concept of insurance for everyone. So we'll touch on that. And we also have Neha. What's the surname? Yeah, Neha from Descartes Underwriting, right? And Descartes Underwriting takes its name from René Descartes, from the French philosopher and scientist and mathematician. So if you want to do analytics and geometry and algebra, that's where Descartes Underwriting sources inspiration from. And what they do is that they are the largest firm in the insurance industry globally that focuses solely on parametric insurance solutions or index-based insurance. So where should we go? Do you want to be on stage? Yeah. What? Yeah, let's go on stage. Yeah. I think better. And then we can start the conversation. So I'll start the session. So we're talking about climate smart insurance solutions. And here, I just wanted to frame the discussion. So we can talk about how to increase insurance for the most vulnerable communities out there. And to frame it and to focus the discussion a little bit more, when we talk about the insurance protection gap, particularly due to climate change, you can talk about the protection gap at different layers. There's the macro layer. So this is insurance for governments and sovereigns and cities. So you have the Caribbean Insurance Facility. Here in Asia, you have the Southeast Asian Disaster Risk Insurance Facility or the Pacific Catastrophe. That's really meant to be insurance to cover governments. And then you have insurance for households, and that at the micro level, so that would be more the micro level insurance. And you have the meso level, which would be anywhere from cities, but also micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. So this discussion would focus a little bit more on micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Not exclusively, but largely. And I can tell you why. If you look at developing countries around the world, but even some developed countries, the backbone of economies are small, medium-sized enterprises. And if you go to developing countries, you can also include micro enterprises there. And these are, if this is the backbone of economies, they are also some of the most systematically vulnerable to climate shocks. So if they are threatened year in and year out with climate shocks, then economies will not prosper. I can give you one killer stat, I think. The Vulnerable 20 Ministers of Finance did a study, and then they're now V58 from V20, and they said that in the past 2 decades, the past 20 years, climate-related shocks have wiped out 1/5 of their combined GDP. And that's how climate change is setting back development in many countries around the world. And that's a killer stat for me because you've really taken out 20% of the prosperity, of the economic prosperity, if you measured it in classic economic terms. on what that means. So it really thwarts development, and this is why insurance for climate vulnerable communities, in this case, MSMEs, would be quite important as a discussion point. So let's start with Neha, and I'll give her the mic to first introduce herself as a practitioner, your background, but also your company, Descartes Underwriting.
Sure. Thanks, Butch. I think you mentioned most of it. No, so as he said, I'm Neha. I've been working with Descartes Underwriting for over a year now. Prior to that, I have worked in the insurance industry. I was with Aon, and previously I was, before that I was in India, and I jumped from industry to industry, which included, a startup, the public sector, private company. So now insurance, and I feel that helps me, looking at the risk transfer bit for MSMEs or corporates. So anyway, about Descartes Underwriting, so we are a specialist provider of parametric solutions for natural catastrophes and extreme weather events. So this could include anything from an earthquake or cyclone to excess rainfall or lack of rainfall, or any weather-related event in that sense. We are structured as an MGA, and our key USP, or what sets us apart, is our underwriting and modeling capabilities, where we are leveraging developments in data science or artificial intelligence or machine learning. Our capacity is provided by Generali UK. So maybe most of you haven't heard of Descartes before today, but you must have heard of Generali as one of the larger insurers. And we are a relatively young company, but growing quite rapidly. So in over 4 years, our global book is around 100 million USD, and that's just parametric products. So we are seeing an increase in demand, and there is definitely an increase in awareness and understanding of parametric products. In terms of our products, we are really, industry agnostic. So as long as the risk is related to a natural catastrophe or any weather event, we are able to provide cover. But I think focusing more on the MSMEs or the government side of things, I think Butch mentioned the African risk capacity on his second last slide. So that's something we are participating in for the last couple of years. More recently, this year, we are providing coverage for the government of Djibouti, who has an agreement with the African risk capacity. And this, again, I think in the end, it is benefiting the more vulnerable sections of the society. So the cover that the government is buying is basically for drought and for excess rainfall for different parts of the year, depending on when the risk is the most. So I think that's just an example of how a parametric may be able to help, obviously the large, bigger companies to cover their risk. But at the same time, governments are also focusing on this more and more, especially when there is, funding available to cover the vulnerable sections, or the marginalized sections of their society. So that's a bit about Descartes.
I probe you already on what this. So just to unpack parametric insurance, so we need to contrast it with classic indemnity-based insurance, where you need to assess the loss, and then once you've assessed the loss, then you're gonna pay the loss. So parametric insurance is based on a parameter or an index, right? Yeah. And so you want to unpack it for people?
Absolutely. I had thought about it earlier, and I was like, I should probably give that example, but sorry, I missed that. So let me just take a simple example. And as Butch said, the easiest way to explain parametric is when you compare it to the traditional insurance that we've all grown up listening about or working in that sector. So I'll take the example of an earthquake, and technically it works similar for all of our products. They're all parameter or trigger based. So let's say an individual or a corporate or a government is buying an earthquake product from us for the country of Nepal, for the capital Kathmandu, right? Purely an example. And after obviously collaboration with the client or understanding the risks of the individual or the bank, etc., we come up with a structure which, again, assuming the structure goes like this, that if there is an earthquake of magnitude 6, the client would get a payout of 20% of the limit that they've bought. If it's of magnitude 7, they get 50%, and if it's magnitude 8 and above, they get 100% payout. So now this structure is decided before the policy incepts. So everyone's in agreement with this, and the numbers I just said is purely for example. The percentages and magnitudes can differ, right? The policy incepts, and then we are also monitoring the situation, and as soon as there's an earthquake, the data is released. So all the data that we use to determine the claim payout in terms of the magnitude of the earthquake would be third-party independent data. So for earthquakes, it could be the USGS data, for example. Once the final number is out from USGS, which takes up to about a week, 10 days, and let's again assume the earthquake was of magnitude 7.2 or 7. Then we refer back to the policy and see that, okay, as per the policy at magnitude 7, the client is getting a payout of 50% of the limit. Now, if the client is, let's say an individual bought it for $1,000 or for $100 limit even, right? Then they get the $50 payout. That's it. There is no loss adjustment. We are not going to check did that individual actually have that loss or not. It also applies to a large client who might be buying a $100 million limit. It also applies to a government who's probably buying a $100 million limit. So let's say the government of Nepal was buying this. As soon as an earthquake of magnitude 7 happens, we would then pay out that $50 million to the client because that's what, as per the policy, they should get. So there is no loss adjustment. There is no loss, there is no surveyors involved. And this is the reason that makes parametric more transparent. The client, knows right from the beginning when would they get a payout, claim payout or not. And also there is no negotiation in that sense. And this also results in the payment of claims being much faster, which really works for, in all cases, but more so in case of disasters, because it's immediately after that you kind of need that money to be able to rebuild and structure everything. So I hope that sort of made it clear in terms of what parametrics is. Does that help?
Yes. So I can tell you that there's been a lot of experimentation on parametric insurance in the last decade that is now influencing the intergovernmental discussion. The Loss and Damage Fund, they're looking at trigger-based solutions. So for me, it would be summarized by this saying that a stitch in time saves 9. So the faster the insurance pays out, the less shock a community will be, the more it will be able to cope better with a particular shock. Otherwise, if it comes 20 days or 1 month down the road, the damage has been done. It's very harder to recover. However, can I also just critique that first? Because I remember when parametric insurance was being rolled out in my home country, in the Philippines, there were farmers who bought parametric insurance cover. And so the trigger was wind speed. And then it wasn't triggered, but they had major losses because the wind speed was not triggered, but there was excessive rainfall, excess rainfall. So what have we learned? So this is what they call a bit of some of the risk. And also when you quantify the payout, it may not be commensurate to the actual loss there. So there's what they call basis risk also. So there's been, since you're the largest, I'm critiquing you because you're the largest parametric insurance provider. What have we learned in the past years to make parametric insurance more fit for purpose and avoid these loopholes?
So just to take the same example in terms of a cyclone. So now you're right, when there is a cyclone, there may be heavy rainfall or a storm surge, etc. So now when we are designing the structure, right, so let's say you're a individual or a resort, in a cyclone-prone area. So the payout that we are giving out is not a random number. We would obviously discuss with the client. And so they know that if if there is a cyclone, there is damage not only from the high wind speeds, but also heavy rainfall. So in that case, the payout is in line with the total damages they would have. So even though this, the trigger might be wind speed, right? But if it's cyclone related, for example, and they're expecting heavy rainfall along with that, we kind of cover that. But in addition to that, there can also be a situation where it's not a cyclone, but not in terms of the category 3, category 4, category 5, but there is heavy rainfall. So we do have a rainfall product as well. So in that case, a client, if they have an excess of rainfall product, then if those triggers of rainfall are met, then they do get a payout. So I think there is always basis risk, which I think is then traditional as well. There may be a time that you don't get your claims paid, right? But I think it's more about the client or the individual understanding better what is it that they're buying. So obviously, if they don't understand, they're like, oh, let's just buy a cyclone parametric. And if it's not structured well, if they're not aware of all the risks in that sense, then no one's going to be happy at the end of it. But we have looked at the basis risk component, which obviously cannot be completely, negated. But the products that we see in the market now that my company has is it covers the damage from rainfall as well.
Right. Before I go to you, a yes or no answer. Can you apply have you applied parametric insurance to life and health insurance? No, yeah.
To health insurance? So far, no.
Yeah, okay. Just a question, because then if you're talking about infectious diseases, endemics, pandemics, there might be, I was just thinking that it may be applicable, right?
Yes, so for example, we have applied a heat product or high temperature product to productivity of livestock. So it is weather related. So what happens is if it's too hot, the cows end up producing less milk. So a product can be bought for something like this, but here the trigger would be the temperature. Okay. But for infectious disease, no. So as long as it's an act of God or weather related, then yes.
Right. Okay. Let's move to Bangladesh and to Green Delta Insurance. I gave the etymology of Descartes Underwriting. You want to share something about Green Delta and what it's all about?
Thank you. And once again, thank you for inviting me here to speak and share my experience. I said I'm the managing director and CEO of Green Delta Insurance Company. That's the largest non-life insurance company. It's the 38th year running, and we have been here and also being the innovator of all different types of insurance product, including going abroad for insurance. So we have always having the milestone achievement, and we have gone into SDG. SDG is one of our corporate embedded. It's a strategy that is embedded in our corporate strategy, and what you've mentioned regarding the insurance for everyone, why we have come up with that. In addition to the traditional insurance, having all the big insurance for the corporate sector and all the multinationals and the banks, we have come up with a strategy where we have taken out our CSR funds to actually invest in the micro segment, the marginal segment, which is actually the backbone of our country, the MSME and also the micro. And I have actually come from a various professional background. I've worked in microfinance for many years before I joined the banking industry, and also I was leading the SME banking department of Bragg Bank for almost 9 years, and where we have actually started the SME insurance, only the fire insurance for their loan amount. And then I've joined the insurance industry. It's been like more than 27 years of my career experience, and when I joined this industry, I felt that the insurance is a very neglected sector where the penetration is less than 1%, and we do not have insurance for all the people in Bangladesh. We have 170 million people, and where you see the MSME, that's the backbone of the country, and contributing 25% of the GDP, and agriculture is 13.6%. We don't have any insurance for agriculture farmers, and also for the individuals, not for the property and casualty as well. People do insurance when they're bound to, where they're forced to, like taking a bank loan, or where it's mandatory from the government. So that's why we are actually working on the segment where we are investing in the marginal segment. We have created a platform where we have gone in for women insurance, micro segment, like I worked in microfinance. IFC is one of our investor in equity investor, and we started the agriculture insurance back in 2012. Started with the horticulture, and then have a pilot project with IFC in 2015. That's how we started with the weather-based index insurance. And then we started with few farmers, and now we have touched more than 0.8 million farmers across Bangladesh, paying out more than 1.15 million people, and covering more than 570,000 acres of land. The number seems very small, but in Bangladesh, having the least perception of insurance, this is, I think, it's a very big thing, because without the support of the government, we started on our own and started giving results. And the success story, the success actually came through the multi-stakeholder approach. We have partnered with the organization to increase our outreach, to have a distribution network throughout the country. And in that case, we have support. We had support from IFC, UK, USAID, Insurance Resilience Solution Fund, Oxfam, and other development organizations where we have worked with specific products that has actually helped us gain more experience for the farmers, and for giving them, the insurance confidence. And parametric solutions actually helped in terms of transparency, giving quick claims to them. And the marginal segment, actually, they were really amazed to get claims without knowing that they will get the claims. This is something that really triggered, and we have now farmers who've going to budget session, talking to the ministers that they're also paying a part of their premiums, where we have partner organizations like Syngenta and other Syngenta Foundation and seed companies, input farmers, banks, NGOs, where we do cover the excess rainfall, unseasonal rainfall, cold and hot waves, and other, all those predefined area which you've mentioned regarding the earthquake. So these are the ways the farmers and the institutions, it's a win-win situation for them, because for the banks, it's a kind of we're doing the credit risk assessment for them, and for the farmers, we are giving them assurance in terms of financial and the food security, where we have worked with Oxfam and with the Modi satellite satellite data. We had come up with the flood insurance, and with the IFC, we have come up with the weather index insurance, where we have combined the ground level data with satellite data, and we have interpolated data where in every 10 kilometers having the 40 years of data. So this is something that giving us the transparency and the quick claim payouts for the farmers, that really helps. And also the educational, which you have mentioned, that sometimes if if there's a wrong trigger and if there's no claim payout, the farmers will not accept. That's the kind of, that's a more education. So this is where the awareness comes in, and we have really worked hard. We are still working like to end, I would say, customer education program where we try to make them aware of how to kind of prevent, how to make themselves aware through like SMS, free call center, and those things that will help them to cover them from the adverse weather conditions, and also to take shelter, and also to educate them when they will not get the claim. This is something not only important for the marginal segment, they actually learn more quickly than the affluent class, I would say, because people don't, sometimes in our country, what the challenges that we face is that if we take insurance policy, there has to be a claim. So there has to be awareness from all the sectors, like government, private sectors, development organization, and the education institutes, and like having a sustainable and inclusive insurance, so that where we can have coverage not only for the farmers, crop insurance and livestock, but also the farmers needs health insurance, what you've mentioned. So it should be synchronized, health and crops and other insurance coverage. Thank you so much.
So you're touching on one part there, which is already insurance literacy, is I think what you're trying to drive at. So as an example, so my former company in the Philippines was affected by Super Typhoon Haiyan some years ago, devastated the midsection of the Philippines. And what my former company did, Pioneer Insurance, was they went to the region affected and they asked communities to claim. And when people found out that they had insurance cover, that showed them a lot of evidence on what insurance can do for them. And that's the reason why the Philippines microinsurance segment is a success story. I think that is also inspiring other communities there. But you've had your own story there, and I commend you for having insurance for everyone. So she's done work for insurance for migrant workers, for garment workers, for rural communities, for women. I think it's very important. But you mentioned something in your background that also was interesting. You had a background on SME finance, right? Can you just give us your take on what is the mindset of MSMEs and why they are underserved right now? So do they want to buy insurance, or are they currently sold insurance? Or do they have access, right?
Thank you. The MSMEs are still, they have challenges in having access to capital, access to finance, access to information, and access to infrastructure development areas. When I worked in the banking sector, no commercial bank came out to serve the MSMEs. Why? Because they don't think they are they do not fall under the commercial banking criteria, because they did not have proper financial statements and all those documents that they require. And they also didn't go to the NGOs because they don't fall under the poverty alleviation criteria. So they used to get funding from the informal money lenders, where the interest rate was very high. There we actually came forward. How? Of course the interest rate was a little high because we didn't charge collateral, because these entrepreneurs, they don't have, even they have land, they don't have proper documents, right? So there's no point having a collateral, because they will never get out of that system. So how to get rich, to them? Affordable pricing and accessible. The installments were, we have our own information, like getting all the information from the community, whether they pay their, the creditors, whether they pay their gas and electricity and other bills. So this is how we, and of course getting their stock and all, we got their cash flows, and that's how their installments are structured in such a way they can pay out. They didn't think about the interest. They all thought about getting the money, getting the fund when they needed it. So affordable and accessible and quick service. So this is how we started with the SME financing, and then so in 7 years' time it was a kind of a huge development, and now it's all over the country. All the banks, all of my staff, they're actually working in other banks. I feel good. And when I was there, started the SME insurance. Insurance is something that, MSMEs still having problem getting formal banking support. Even the central bank are giving them, all those loans from ADB and World Bank, that okay, the private banks will lend to the SMEs. If you take money from a lower interest, then you can lend it at a higher interest. Even then, they're having problems, and insurance is even more, less present. So they don't want to take insurance. This I can just share a very recent story where there was a huge claim, a huge fire loss in Bangladesh and in Dhaka city right before Eid. So there we actually, as you said, the Pioneer Insurance. Our strategy is like, before people thought about their claims, even there's a fire loss, we just go. Even thinking whether they're our client or not, we just go. And then all the SME entrepreneurs, they said, oh, what will happen? And then they found out it's actually backed by a bank loan. So if it's backed by a bank loan, they will get the claim. But they will only get the claim of the loan amount. That's the sum insured. We're still lagging behind that. The sum insured can be huge. If there has a kind of a maybe $3 million of stock, but they have not covered the insurance of those stock. They only covered the loan amount. So now they're thinking that if they had that insurance, they would have gotten the whole amount instead of only the banked amount. So this is something I think we that's why I said when we talk about sustainability. And when you talk about climate change and all the goals, everything has to be actually embedded in such a way so that all we talk about, all stakeholders are important.
Right.
So insurance should be a part of everything. And MSMEs must get this parametric solutions where, this not only the agriculture farmers will get this, but the MSMEs also will get, if there's a trigger, they can get a loan. And it should not be only for MSMEs, but also for the health, where we work with the health ministry, and we have covered more than 8 districts and, more than 800,000 poor people in Bangladesh are having health insurance, free health insurance from government, where we work as a scheme operator. But this health insurance should be actually linked to the farmers too, because when there's during a claim, before getting the money, that person goes through a mental trauma. So we talk about mental awareness, mental wellness, and having a health insurance also, boost up the farmers or a person who's working really hard, the energy that, okay, I am insured, so I'm not going to be sick, or I'm not going to be incapable of taking care of my business. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we open up before I probe more questions. Any question from the audience? They've shared a lot of insights on what is parametric insurance, what Green Delta Insurance is doing in Bangladesh to reach out to marginalized communities. Any quick question from the floor on what they've said so far? Yeah, George Thomas from the Indian Insurance Institute in Mumbai. can we use a mic, George, because there's translation?
Yeah, Madam Farzanah, I have seen from your profile that you're working with the rural women of Bangladesh, and with the self-help groups and things like that. How do you associate that work of yours? How do you dovetail that with what what our concept is about sustainability and about protecting livelihoods?
We don't only work with women, we work with marginal segment in terms of like farmers, MSMEs, women, and also now we are trying to include the children who are actually young, but they're trying to come into the system. So sustainability is that we need to come up with an inclusive product that gives them space to actually let us know what they actually want. So it's like not selling an insurance product, but selling a solution to a farmer or an MSME or an entrepreneur's need. That is something that we are trying to promote. And additionally, it's not only the product that we want to sell, but we try to educate them in terms of product, process, and also the regulation. This is something that's very important that in a country, the social system, the economy, the political, and also the transparency of the regulation. Yet there are, there's micro regulation. There's a lot of disputes between the MRA and the and the Insurance Regulatory Authority, where the NGOs, they feel that okay, they can sell the insurance policies, but they're not selling the insurance policy through the insurance companies. So the NGOs, when they sell insurance policies, it's like a self-insurance. Sometimes it gets misinterpreted. So that's why the confidence of insurance is sometimes get diluted. So bringing the marginal segment into the inclusive finance and inclusive insurance system, that has helped us to make them believe and also generate more revenues. Like for instance, when I get invited at the United Nations, in New York, not only talk about that how I've become the SDG pioneer or whatever. It's like, of course, we are improving the livelihood, but also they want to know whether investing in these segments are generating more revenues for the corporates. Like, partnership, like I mentioned, that's a really important goals of SDG, that alone you cannot go further. You have to have the multiple stakeholder approach, including the client segments. So we were the first in Bangladesh. We have come up with an SDG report where we have actually mentioned then how much revenue we have generated, not only from the women segment. Like I can proudly say that 12% of the revenue is generated by our women employees selling women insurance. So this is something that helps other corporates to invest in in SDGs. Otherwise, the goal of SDG 30 will not be possible. So I think sustainability is nothing but inclusiveness, and that's how that when we say that living no one's behind, that goes with our vision that it's Green Delta marches with time, and we have an insurance policy that's for everyone. Maybe 170 million people one day will have insurance policy. It could be health, it could be accidental insurance policy or education policy, anything else. And of course, with life and non-life, having a composite product, which we yet to have. So slowly and steadily, I think government policymakers are actually accepting that, okay, you guys are doing something and bringing in results, and we have testimonials from our people, various people from various backgrounds, from MSMEs, farmers, or even professionals and corporates who are working with the SDGs, with the marginal segment.
So I want to go back to Neha. Parametric insurance for MSMEs. How much of your global book is insurance for MSMEs?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think it's larger on the corporate side, but we do have clients where it's banks who are buying the parametric products from us to protect their book. But ultimately, it's also benefiting their loanees when, if there is an earthquake or a cyclone or the crop is ruined due to excessive rainfall or drought, they can let go of the loan EMIs. So basically, the bank is buying to protect their book, which ultimately does protect the ultimate loanee in that sense.
So is that still marginal or pilot, or is that already mainstream type of parametric insurance that you have in your books?
As I said, we do have, I said, but the larger is more on the corporate side.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm not including, and this I'm specifically talking of banks, but if you were to include like the Djibouti example, right, which I just gave, which the government is buying for their people, but directly it depends on the government how much is going to each individual. Similar to that, we are also the lead reinsurer or PICRIC. So we do have government programs, like the largest Indian agricultural insurance program, the PMFBY. We do participate in that. But having said that, we provide the reinsurance capacity. So we are not the ones involved in the insurer company paying it out to the farmers, but we know it is going. Like that's where the claims are coming from.
Right. So let's talk about scale, because it's one thing to have these types of insurance cover. It's another thing to bring it to scale.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you our hypothesis at the V20 Sustainable Insurance Facility that we have at the PSI that looks into insurance for MSMEs. Our hypothesis and our theory is that in order to bring insurance solutions for MSMEs to scale, we need to work with quote-unquote demand aggregators, right? And what does this mean? Demand aggregators could be development banks, which have a mandate to work towards MSMEs, MFIs, who have an MSME book, government agencies who work with who are oriented towards MSMEs. So the idea is that this team that we have could provide technical expertise, that they somehow become an in-house broker for these demand aggregators, so that ultimately MSMEs want to buy insurance. Is that a good strategy? Otherwise, if it's not good, then we have to redraw the whole strategy.
No, I think it's a good strategy. So saving you a lot of work. No, I do agree with that. Yes, but I think in addition to that, what also will help us achieve scale in terms of MSMEs is, again, going back to that whole literacy and insurance awareness question, right? Because in the end, you might have 10 aggregators or the governments being like, oh, you know what, we have this amazing product and why don't you, MSME should buy it. But if the MSME is still seeing insurance as a added expense and not like a necessary investment, that's where, that's one of the main reasons, I think, which is why MSMEs are highly underinsured. So that's one, of course, that they need to kind of have that awareness and education about how buying insurance is not just, money going to waste. It actually provides them that resilience if such an event happens. And obviously, to begin with, it helps if there is government financing and subsidies. And just to give an example of that, I'll again mention the PMFBY, which is the government's flagship. It's a farmer scheme, but the premium for that, from 2016, which was 500 million USD, 2016, just like, 7-8 years ago. This year, it's expected to be 4 billion USD. Now, it's growing fast, and by that, I mean more and more farmers are enrolling. They are seeing the benefits of it. But having said that, it's also highly subsidized. It's like 97% of the premium is paid by the government.
Right.
But one of the
How sustainable is that premium subsidy?
Well, it depends on the government, but...
Right, but, once the subsidy is out, then there's no...
Can I add to that, if I may? Of course, subsidy is very much required, but where we come from our experience, I feel that when you give more subsidy, they don't really understand the benefit.
Yeah.
You know, when you participate even $1, then that person really understands the benefits. I think there should be kind of a pro rata, you know, those, it's like upliftment of the people, marginal segment, from if they, just like, you know, when from MDGs now it's SDGs, right? So it's like that. So when you have reached out certain you know, number, you know, amount of income that they're kind of generating, and then their subsidy can be less. So this is how partnership is very much important, where in partnership, farmers and other MSMEs, they participate proportionately, even in the garment sector. They participate, and then gradually they come out of those segment that, okay, I will try to buy over the counter.
Right. So this is a bit of skin in the game,
yes,
basically, right?
Yes, of course.
I think that always, I completely agree with that. But and I did say 97 to 98% subsidy, but still, even with that, there are millions of farmers.
Skin.
Yeah, there is. But even that, for a farmer in India, may not be a small amount, right? And I understand subsidies at some point would have to be rolled out, but even with the current situation, most of the farmers, or millions of farmers, are still not enrolled. So the government is still at that stage where, you know, they want to ensure most of the farmers sort of enroll and understand the benefit of this. And then eventually they will probably roll it out. I don't know. But so this is what I meant by scale. You know, they have gotten so many more farmers involved, and it's not just through subsidy. It's highly digitized. You know, there's lots of awareness campaigns. There's a lot the government is doing in terms of making sure the farmers understand that they have this insurance. And it's also parametric in a sense. It's yield-based, not exactly directly related to weather, but it's yield-based. So the farmer can see, okay, in their area, this was the output for rice or wheat, and accordingly they get paid. Yeah.
So we've talked about, how about the idea of replicability? What can we say about that? I mean, you've done a lot of, on the one hand, Descartes Underwriting has done of parametric insurance solutions. I assume that you've tried to replicate solutions in different markets, and I guess it's the same for you in Bangladesh. What could be some tenets of replicability? Because each market has its own idiosyncrasies. But what can you say about inclusive insurance for marginalized communities, including MSMEs, and what could be some things to consider about replicability?
Yeah, of course, from experience, we get all those, the learnings, and then we try to build those learning into those new products. But at the end, but the most important thing is one size doesn't fit all. So I think in this case, like I said, like the farmers, the MSMEs also have got all this lack of accessibility in capital, in finance, in infrastructure development, everything, everywhere, even in digital literacy as well. So digital and financial literacy. In that case, we need to really understand, you know, the really the need, the specific need of a customer, and also try to segment. You know, we need to have like sub-segment of all MSMEs, like manufacturers. There are different types of manufacturers, like pharmaceuticals and all. So you need to have proper segment-wise client base, and then I take you know, the inclusive product design. And the other thing is, we try to offer, I think, risk management solutions, and also risk transfer like insurance, so that MSMEs will understand the need. That when there is an event, then they understand, okay, we should have insured more. The other thing is, the other point is multi-stakeholder approach, partnership. Partnership really helps. Why? Because it's a win-win situation for the, even if it's a bank loan, or if it's a retail, or if it's a, or if it's a you know, organization which has linked to the farmers. So it's like a more distribution approach. It's a low cost for the institutions, and of course the financial security for the insured. And also, I think if you have partnership, you learn quickly. And in an organization like in our insurance company, we don't only have insurers. We have people from various backgrounds like technology, pharmaceutical, doctors, engineers, those who have worked in banks and other financial asset management company, so that all kind of ideas come and innovations comes through this segment, and also bring in new blood. Right. New blood gives in new ideas. So that's how we try to kind of trigger and continuous improvement. This is something that, like parametric solution we have now. Like I said, there will be more innovations and revolutions will be coming out where we can then try to go into the soil. We haven't gone into the include the soil. We started the shrimp index insurance recently. So I think it's like continuous development, continuous learning, coming to these type of platform where and tying with UN. Is something that we can learn and also have a platform to share our experience. And also, this way, it can go to the government to make the insurance policy mandatory. Okay. This is something, without having this mandatory thing, nothing works out. No one will take this insurance policy, even the SMEs, no matter how much discounts you give them.
So there's 4 things you said there in one go in terms of replicability. So one is, I think I have to use this business jargon of customer centricity. I think understanding the needs of your customers. So 2 is the innovation within the team, having people from different skill sets coming from technology and everything, and using that to help tailor insurance solutions. Yeah, 3rd is, since we're in Asia, Kaizen, which is continuous improvement in Japan as a Japanese term. And 4th is compulsion. Because it can also have its adverse effects, right? Compulsion,
Of course, will have an adverse effect, but if it is a kind of a more maker-checker concept, and there's a kind of a penalty system, and there's a monitoring, and the regulators are monitoring, of course, transparency, technology will bring in transparency, and this way, the insurers will be more competitive, will have more competitive package for the, individuals, and there will be a feedback system, the customer management system that is somewhere not there in the insurance area. They need to understand when they get the claims. Then they understand, but they don't need to think that every year they will get the claim. So this is something that we need to look upon, and the health claims is something that brings in moral hazard. Like I said, the product innovation and product tweaking, all the continuous improvement, like we have this year, we have had a big loss in health, because during COVID, we were the first insurance company we come up with an insurance, COVID insurance policy. People never used to take COVID policy. Even we go to them, so they used to be more, more.
What are you covering? Sorry.
The COVID insurance.
Oh, COVID insurance.
So where they were hospitalized, we used to take care. Yeah. But we had one criteria that if you have COVID, they will get the coverage. But when they started taking the coverage, we should have, taken this out, because everyone's taking COVID coverage, right? So if anyone has COVID, that will go to a claim thing. So this is something that that educates a person that not to have COVID, so you can wear mask and not to go into this. So this is something that we got a lesson out of it, that you need to kind of have the product policies reviewed quite some time, because this is something very new area that we're working on.
Do you have a comprehensive cover that covers COVID, bird flu, and foot and mouth disease?
Not really. But we have comprehensive policy for COVID and other health areas. Yes.
Just because I think that's I'm just
putting
thinking
out
about
this, yeah, these two are not in like in demand at the moment. So of course we are not bringing all those moral hazard issues together. But of course, why not? If there is a you know, area that we can work on.
I'm just gonna open the door for one last chance for people to weigh in. Any question from the floor? If none, I'll have two final requests from you. One is your, so we've talked about inclusive insurance generally, and then we've talked about agribusinesses, marginalized communities, MSMEs. First, a key priority for you to drive up the inclusive insurance agenda, what would be the main thing that you need is really needed to turbo boost this agenda particularly in vulnerable countries? And then I'll ask the second question next, but 1 minute on that each, and then I'll ask the final question.
Okay. I think the one key thing for me would be, and I know I'm repeating myself, but the education and the awareness bit. Because I think now we have, and this applies for all agribusinesses.
Who has to do that mainly? The insurer, the government, the regulator?
I think everyone.
Everyone,
yeah. It's not, I mean, even I do that.
Yeah.
So my clients per se are brokers, for example. So it's a new concept for most. So I'm literally spreading awareness before, you know, and I should be doing that before I can expect any business in that sense, because no one will buy a product if they don't understand it. And sorry, just to add to that, and I think, I mean, broadly, we need to make MSMEs or small marginalized communities, for example, more aware about insurance. And I think parametric in that sense is so simple to understand that this, specifically for natural catastrophes and extreme weather events, it's a win-win, right? I mean, yes, everyone still has to spread that awareness and educate, but why not start with parametric? So in addition to all the stakeholders that you mentioned, I mean, even us, so we are currently working on products which in one of the countries in APAC where anyone like you and I will be able to buy a cyclone or an earthquake product online by just putting our location there, which automatically picks up the latitude, longitude, and then they can choose the limit that they want to buy. And if there's an event, there's that structure. So, you know, so everyone needs to do their bit, but I would, if I had to choose one, it would be the awareness and education bit.
So that's also in the literacy space, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, insurance literacy. How about you?
Of course, I think I will not say only one, but few. One of them is the accessibility and affordability of any product. And the second thing is, since technology is bringing in revolutionary change, you need insured and insurers and other stakeholders need to have proper, update themselves regarding the, technology education. And what we are also doing, like non-financial people having financial education. It's like we don't need to be PhD or masters in every background, but those people who doesn't understand insurance in a multi-stakeholder approach, even the bankers need to have a kind of just general knowledge about the insurance. So I think that really helps. We do it for our customers. We do it for the organizations, the financial institutions, NGOs, retailers, and all those input farmers and other institutions that we work for. That what is insurance? Why do you need to do insurance? Just the general knowledge. So that's how, understanding the more, that's how the awareness really helps. And the government, this multi-stakeholder approach in working with the government helps. We work with few entities, so that it's a win-win situation for us to have the distribution, for us to have the mileage, and also for them to understand how the private sector works. So it's not, sometimes it gets really difficult that people think that, okay, a public listed company, it's always a profit making. So it is not a profit making. We have an SDG where we have a socio-commercial viable project for them, and it's not profit. It's not, we don't think of profit all the, we don't think about profit. We think about inclusiveness, we think about improving livelihood, and they will bring in revenues slowly, but definitely they are bringing.
Okay.
Thank you.
You touch about bankers knowing about insurance. So one of our next speakers on the life and health works for a bank who knows insurance. So
like I was a banker, so that's why I understand.
It's at Moncrief from HSBC. But my final thing is that, so I gave a killer stat, but on a negative note on developing countries in the V20's GDP, combined GDP being wiped out 1/5 of their combined. What is your, let's turn it the positive, what is the proudest statistic that you have for your company that you can show, that you can be proud of and say that you are driving change there and turning the tide on this agenda? What is your proudest statistic?
I go first?
Yeah.
Well, a relatively young company, and I think I mentioned this in the beginning, but we do see a demand for parametric products going. And I know we can just say that, but we have the numbers to prove it. And again, our clients are of all sizes, but we also know the severity and the frequency of catastrophic events are going up.
So what's the success for you? 100% parametric insurance solutions worldwide?
So worldwide, we do only parametric.
Yeah.
So to put more flavor into that, our first year of business, we closed our book at $5 million USD in terms of gross written premium. Last year, we closed it at $100 million USD. So within 4 years, it's grown quite rapidly, and 30% of that is from the APAC region, which is more on the developing side. But well, maybe next year or 5 years from now, I'll have some other statistics.
Okay.
But for now, this just indicates that
Maybe
there is a
it's
demand
1
for
billion
this.
the next time we speak from 100 million. So how about you? Because we have to go for the
Yeah,
break.
I think I've mentioned a few times, we have touched more than 0.8 million farmers, pay out more than 1.15 million, having more than 570,000 acre of land we cover. We have more than 300,000 women. We have women insurance, and they have many stories to share where they have improved their livelihood. It's not an insurance, it's a powerful weapon for them that has really made them not only to kind of get the claims but also start a new business. Like for instance, one factory worker who lost one of their eyesight, with the claim amount, she started a tea stall, and then she got into a business where it's a kind of it's a tailoring shop with 3-4 owners she has. So you can understand that one insurance claim amount has led her to become an entrepreneur. And of course, we have more than 700,000. We've touched people in terms of micro health insurance. And so I think more than 3 to 4 million people we have touched through micro insurance, and also through digital insurance. We were the first to launch the digital insurance in Bangladesh. And we hope to reach 5 million by 2030. And of course, bring in more revenues for the company and show that these people, these entrepreneurs are actually the backbone of the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the two of you. Please give our 2 women leaders a round of applause, who are really respective pioneers in their own fields. And if I would summarize this, it would be parametric insurance for everyone. Thank you.